Welcome to Spain, Poco a Poco. Hi, Tanya.
Hi, today we are going to talk about cheese. I'm very excited. I do love a good cheese.
Also known as queso. We are in España.
Exactly. And I will say, I'm just for a little bit of intro to cheeses in general in Spain. I was very surprised at all the different cheeses that I found here when we first moved, that I really had not seen that type of cheese before. And it is greatly explained by the fact that Spain only exports 7% of its cheeses, whereas France, as one can possibly
Right.
imagine, slightly more at 43%. And even if these numbers are very rough, obviously they change. I mean, you can see that the Spanish are really holding on to their cheeses and eating them. So, yeah.
Right.
So,
Well, I mean, you go back to this, in the States, if you wanted Spanish cheese, you were getting manchego at Trader Joe's, and that was pretty much the extent
yes,
of
I
it,
would say
right?
that's true. And then when we came here, I mean, there's just so many different cheeses. They make a lot of cheese out of sheep and goat's milk as well, which for someone that's a little bit lactose intolerant, love that because there's so many mixes. It's not all cow's cheese. And I think in America, like you
Right.
said, unless you're going for a feta or something, it's all cow's cheese for the most part, I think.
Right, right. And being from America coming here, if I may just add, is that when I first arrived, I thought Spain had no cheeses because I knew none of these
Right.
cheeses because I wasn't exposed
Right.
to them before I moved here, right?
Right. No, it's so true. And then the flavor mixes that you get when so you'll see a lot of mixes, which is a cow and a sheep and a goat, all like they'll mix all those milks together and make a cheese. Very interesting flavors.
Hmm.
And what's lovely about it, and I think you've mentioned this in another episode, they put the animals on the cheeses. And it's really
Yes, they
cute.
animal
Yeah,
code
there's
them.
animal code, which I love. Makes it so easy. So
So you don't have to speak Espanol to
you do
understand
not.
what cheese
No,
you're
you do not. But
getting.
I hope that this little poco a poco will help everyone understand the Spanish cheeses a bit better. It certainly did for me. Do you want to start with the first one? We're going to start with the areas of Spain. So if you want to start with the first
Right.
one,
So the first one comes from La Mancha, and we'll call that Manchego, right?
Manchego.
Since it's the one that we probably all know and have heard from,
Hmm.
right? So it is from the La Mancha region of Spain. It's a semi-hard sheep's milk cheese, and it has to come from the Manchega breed of
Oh,
sheep,
which I did
which
not
I did
know.
not knew
Yep,
that
I
was.
did not know that.
I didn't know there was a breed of sheep even.
No, we
So,
are learning a lot
but
about
sheep
the
are
different
sheep.
breeds of sheep and pigs and cows in these episodes, which is very interesting.
We may get into animal husbandry by the time this is all over.
Uh,
But it is a semi-hard cheese, but it's not hard. You can slice it, you can chew into it, but it has a firm texture, right?
yeah.
And with a little bit of a bite, I would say, and there's a little bit of a
There's
bite
kind of
to it.
there's a
And
variety of them because we'll get into that later, but
right.
there are a variety depending on how long it's been aged. But this is the one I would say this is your basic cheese, which is probably why it's the one that's been exported possibly more. I mean, you'll find, like you said, you found it in Trader Joe's. I mean, this is a nice
Hmm.
cheese that your kids will eat that you like. You can put it in a sandwich, like it's just flexible.
Right, right. And it's a youngish cheese. It's aged from 60 days to two
Hmm.
years. So
The next spot is the next cheese is a Cabrales, and that I do love a good blue cheese. I don't know about you. Yeah,
I
so
do.
obviously blue cheese has more of a specific usage, but this is a very strong blue cheese from the Açores region. And this one is, I think, very interesting because they are aging it in natural caves that are located in the Picos de Europa mountains in Asturias. And those caves have a natural like high humidity and cool temperatures, so that makes it really good for creating this strong flavor and the blue veins and all the delicious stuff that
For the bacteria to
right,
grow and
so
thrive
good.
and take over. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still in search of a really good cracker because I the thing I love about a good blue cheese is a really good cracker. Like if you get those two things combined, now you're in
Hmm.
business.
And we've talked before, I think, about Spain lacking its cracker
Yes.
selection.
Gotta go to fancier places, I think.
But it is usually this cheese is usually a cow's milk,
Yes.
right? But they do a blend, I
Yeah,
think
and then
I've
the
read.
blends, as you can imagine, the blends are stronger. Once you start blending, I think the cow's milk is probably the least flavorful in general, and then you get to goat's milk,
Hmm.
they have more flavor. So when you start blending all these different milks, you get a different flavor and you get a more rich flavor.
That would make sense
Yeah,
to
me
me.
too.
And if we're gonna continue on with cheeses,
Let's do that.
in the northern region of the Basque Country, We have. I'm going to butcher this, and maybe if I try it with my sexy
I think you
Ricardo
should do it with
Montalban voice,
that
I
to
can
make
get
it
it.
sound better. Yeah. That
Idiazabel.
sounds good. Is
Is
Yazabel?
that
Is
good?
Yazabel? I'm sure
Idiazabel,
someone can
something like
help us with
that.
that one.
Now that's a hard smoked sheep milk cheese.
Yep.
So actually, yeah, since I said smoked, I bet it has a smoky, nutty flavor.
I bet it does.
But it's a pressed cheese, which is, I guess, that you apply pressure.
Yeah,
That's
well,
what I'm
I
gonna
thought
go
this
with.
was
Like it's
interesting.
between the
Yeah.
curds. You want to explain
This
it?
was interesting to me because I didn't know. I didn't know what it was called. I mean, I assumed obviously it's made differently, but if you have a harder cheese, they've pressed it when they're making it. They're pressing the curds so that it separates out, and then you get more moisture out when you do that, and that creates a firmer texture and a shape. So these harder cheeses are pressed cheeses. Basically, that's how they end up being harder. And this
Mm.
particular cheese also comes from specific sheep that are up in the Navarre regions of Spain. Go.
Now let's see you
I was gonna
pronounce
make
those
you
two
do
types.
it. So we have an X in here. I don't know how to. So Laxia sheep,
Or
Latcha.
latcha, right?
There
Because
you
it
go,
depends, right?
Latcha
Because the X is
sheep. That
pronounced
there you go.
silent.
That's
Sometimes the X is silent or a sh
yeah.
sound
So
or a.
there's a Latcha sheep and a Carantana sheep. So those are two types of sheep that are found up in the Basque Country that this particular cheese, which we won't pronounce again, needs to come from. Oh, the
Okay.
next one's funny.
Can we say this
I
on the
don't
air?
know.
I
Let's
don't
see if we
know.
can tiptoe around this. It's called a tortilla
It,
cheese. It is known for its shape, which looks like,
and tortilla
well, it looks
means
like a Hershey's Kiss. Also more well known
it's
as
a
a
small
small.
bosom.
There you
It's a
go, a
small
small
bosom.
bosom. That's what it's supposed to look like. And a tortilla is, I mean, probably a small bosom. That's what it
Small,
means in
yes,
Spanish.
exactly. Look at your cute little
Yes,
tortillas.
exactly.
So,
So this is a it is unique for its shape that they've formed the whole thing, but it is a semi-soft.
mhm,
Okay, so you have soft cheeses and hard cheeses, and then you have
right,
semi-soft cheeses and semi-hard cheeses. And the semi-soft and
right.
the semi-hard are different. This is a semi-soft, so it's more in the soft direction.
It's in the soft
Yes.
spectrum and not the hard
And
spectrum.
also
Yes.
made from cows. And this comes from the Galicia region of Spain.
And it could only be made from three breeds of cows, which is your Holstein, your Swiss Brown, or your Rubia
Yep.
Gallega cattle.
Yeah.
Which I don't know what that must be. That must be a Spanish cow,
I think
right?
so.
Big
They have
throat.
one Spanish cow, the other's Swiss, and the other's, I don't know, Holstein.
Holstein, how's that? It's
Northern.
northern. I know that's from a northern place.
Yes. Um, and so that has a unique look, and it's quite a good gifting cheese because it is kind of unique looking.
And that it is a quite it's produced a lot. I think there's upwards of 2 million units of these produced a year. So quite a
That
number
would
of
seem
tortillas
that
being
would
going to
that would
market.
seem like a lot. I have no idea what a lot is for cheese, but that would to me seem like a lot as well, for sure. Um, do you want to carry on with the next one?
But right, but we didn't say that this cheese is more of like a dessert cheese, right? Or it's like what you would put on a cheese plate
Mm-hmm.
after dinner, right? It's a digestive
Digestive.
cheese, right? Yeah, something like that. If you're not for ice cream, if you're one of those cheese people.
That's true.
So that brings us to our Mahon, or Mahon Menorca cheese. I'm gonna think I
I
pronounced
think
that
it's
all right.
Menorca,
I mean,
just Menorca.
which is a pressed cow's milk cheese from
Mm-hmm.
Menorca. But what's cool about this is it has a six-sided shape and rounded edges. So it's um, with six-sided hexagon, right? So it's a hexagon but
But
rounded, right?
rounded because they're using a mold, so they can make them
Right.
all like exactly sort of the same. And it has that is the shape of that type of cheese. And I've noticed this around, especially with just the last one we talked about. Some cheeses just are always made in a certain shape. It has nothing to do, I don't think, with the
Hmm.
flavor of the cheese, but it's what makes them distinctive. And this one
Right,
also
right.
has which I have seen this one. It has a very distinctive orange rind, and that is because they're rubbing the cheese with olive oil and sometimes paprika during the aging process. So it is one that is easy to notice when you're looking at the all the cheeses and to see what this one
Hmm.
is. Yep.
Agreed.
Agreed. Agreed. And the
Agreed.
last one is which I think I haven't actually tried this one, but it sounds very special, and I now want to try it. It's called the torta del thazar, which is literally like
Hazar.
a thazar's cake. And this one is a cheese that is with a it's got a hard edge, a hard rind around the edges, but then it's creamy in the middle, and it's made from sheep's milk. So this one is like what you would imagine your really, really fragrantly on the verge of stinking really badly French cheeses.
It's one that will spoil all the food in your refrigerator. I actually have had this back in New York years
Mm-hmm.
ago, and it'll stink up, it'll stink up your peaches. That's for
Yeah, and
sure.
this one, which I kind of like this idea, is you kind of chop off the top and then you use the top to make it a lid
Hmm.
again, but you take it off and you just basically dip out of it, which I think is like really
Yes.
cool. And this one is made in the north of the San Pedro mountain range in the province of Cáceres in Spain. And it is, there are actually 36 municipalities in this whole region that are allowed to make this cheese. But again, like all the other ones, they're all very specific to the region. So you can't just be making one of these cheeses
Okay.
in some other place and calling it that, you know?
Right. That's very popular in Europe, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
champagne can only come from Champagne and Dijon mustard can only come from Dijon. So we discussed when we talked about Haman,
Yeah.
certain Hamans can only be called that if they come from that region. And so
Right,
it's,
exactly.
they're very strict and I love it. I mean, but they're
They're
very
very
regulated. So you
regulated.
know what you're
Yeah, so
getting,
yeah, if you go back and
right?
listen to our Poco a Poco about Hamon, it's very similar, and it is very interesting. But I like it. It creates a unique
Hmm.
aspect to all of them, and it often, with these types of things, with the cheese and with the Hamon, it's based on the reason why it's so specific is it's based on what these animals are eating, and that's creating a flavor in the
Hmm.
milk that is then used for the cheese or for the Hamon. So you can't just take this animal and put it somewhere else. It's just not going to be the same.
And is there a breed of sheep that can only make this cheese?
Oh, well, this one is only from the Entrefina sheep. So that's another breed of sheep. So we've learned a lot. We could do
Right.
a poco about the breed of sheep in the sheep in this
Yeah.
country, I think.
I think we need a field trip to like a sheep farm and be like, show us
Oh
all
my
your sheep and
gosh.
tell
Well,
us
I
what they
think one
are.
thing we've learned is that maybe they're not all in one place. That might be the problem.
Right.
It would be a tour.
I'm up for a countrywide
Yeah.
road trip. That's
So
fine
to
with me.
conclude cheeses, I think we have just the last thing is just to go over the different names for the different agings of the cheeses. So the
Hmm.
first one, the most basic cheese that is never really aged is the queso fresco, which is something that people might be familiar with. This is a completely unaged cheese. Doesn't have a lot of flavor, but it is used a lot in the cooking here. Like probably in, just for it's something that is very popular for putting on things. It's a basic cheese.
Okay. I mean, I know of it from Latin cuisine that use it for the tacos and
Hmm.
enchiladas, and from
Yeah,
that for
because you don't want
sure.
something with a ton of flavor. It's something that adds the cheesy texture without adding a lot of cheesy flavor.
And then you have your tierno, which is literally means your tender
Hmm.
cheese, tender cheese, and
And now the last three is what you're going to start to see if you're looking for like a manchego cheese or one of these hard cheeses. You're going to maybe start to see these names with the cheese, which is semi curado. Like you see that a lot. So
mhm,
that is your sort of aged, but not for very long. So this might a semi curado cheese, if you find it in the grocery store and a cheese counter, is probably going to be one that now has a little bit of aging, and it's going to taste a little bit more flavorful, but it's still a mild cheese. You can still give it to your
mhm.
kids. It's still something you can put in a sandwich, that type of thing.
To be very meltable.
Probably.
You're going to use this for
Yes.
your grilled cheeses, your mac
Mm-hmm.
and cheeses kind of thing. And then you have your curado, which is your hard aged cheeses, and these, the longer it ages, it's going to bring out strong flavors and aromas. And this is usually about 4 to 11 months,
Yes.
but they're strong, but they can be eaten by a lot of people, right? It's not like it's not one of these ones that a lot of people will be adverse to,
Exactly.
right?
So now
Some
you have
flavorful
a little
cheeses.
bit more flavor, but it's still your basic. It's still kind of a basic cheese. And then you have
Right.
the viejo reserva. So the viejo means old. This is when you're getting into
Hmm.
more than a year, up to 2 years. Now you're really starting to get flavor. So these are probably they're going to be more flavorful, more expensive as well.
Right. I would say, if I may throw this in, like this is kind of like a way to explain it. Like if you're not from here, and like
Hmm.
Gouda is one of those cheeses. Like in America, it's a very soft cheese and can be rock hard. So this is like how the different curing stages, right? You're like, how can one cheese be five
Right.
different flavor profiles and hardness
Yeah, and I've
levels,
seen
right?
more
So I
hardness
think.
levels here in the hard cheeses. Like they have these cheeses, they have the hard
Hmm.
cheeses that you really can slice easily, and then you have ones that are almost like a hard brie, where it's like, yeah, you can still slice it, but it's very soft in its kind of overall texture. It's kind of just a different thing. So it's interesting.
But then I've had the hard cheeses here where you need a jackhammer
Yes.
to slice through it.
Get them all.
Where the whole thing feels like a rind.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then there's one of my favorite things, which is the membrillo, the dulce de membrillo, which is this, it's like a hard quince paste that they'll serve with a
Yeah.
cheese platter. And before I moved here, I'm a big quince jelly
Mm.
fan, which is a hard thing to find. And so I love it. When I saw it, I was like, oh, that's
They have
so
this
good.
everywhere in blocks because they're using it for
Hmm.
everything, but also slicing it up and putting it with cheese plates. So you see it literally everywhere. It's a block of like red jelly. It was what it looks like, kind of.
Hmm.
And you're like, what is that? They also call it quince cheese. That's another name for it, and codonyat in Catalan. So yeah, like
Okay.
you said, very delicious. A very bizarre thing when you're looking at it because it's not immediately clear what it's used for, but because everyone uses it here, no one needs to explain it.
So can I tell you my little tasty snack that
Hmm.
I do? I take a triangle of cheese, one of the like tierno cheeses, and I cut off a little slice of that, and then I wrap a hamon around
Oh,
it, and then I eat that as my little
that
finger
does
snack
sound
if
really
I'm
good. So
just
you
by
got
the
a little bit
fridge.
of
Yeah.
cheese, a little bit of sweet, a little bit of salt, and you're good
But
to go. Yeah.
hmm
That
I got
sounds
all
that
of it.
sounds
I got
like a
all going on.
Spanish like school lunch to me.
It does, right?
Very good. So we have more cheese tasting to go, but I hope this helped everybody have a little bit of insight into all the delicious cheeses that we have here in Spain that you probably haven't seen in other countries.
And I'm going to venture to say we may have some more Poco Pocos
Hmm.
about this. We'll do some. I would like to do some tastings, and maybe we go to a place that has some cheeses. We can just try a region or try a type of cheese and all of its
Hmm.
curados, and get
We'll
back
keep
to
you
y'all.
posted. Bye.
Ciao.
Thank you for listening to Our Spain Poco a Poco. Since you love us so much, please do go on to our social media and follow us and like us and subscribe where you're listening because it really does help us to grow and stick around and do what we are very much enjoying doing.
And give us a shout out on the social medias. Give us a comment on what you would like to hear us talk about. I mean, we like to hear ourselves speak, but we do want to make this, informative for our listeners.
Absolutely, yeah. You can comment on one of our posts or you can send us a message through our Spain Facebook page or Instagram. So we would love to hear from you.
Yes, we would. Till the next episode.
Bye.